Good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stimulus with True North Group, and we're here for our Tuesday Facebook Live sponsored by Virginia's SBDC. So last week we talked about being proactive versus reactive, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses, regardless of size, are more reactive when it comes to cybersecurity or protecting our critical information. And I've given it a lot of thought, and really, I think the challenge is really being able to wrap our arms around the amount of information that we have on our computers or in the cloud, or the information that we collect that a criminal would want. And in prior to computers, if you ran a company or you ran any organization, you had a file room. And in that file room, you would have all of that information that you have for all of your customers, active, past, and you would maintain it. And you would have a lock on the door or a lock on the file cabinets because you could see it and you knew what you needed to do to protect it. So, but the problem is now that it's sitting in a computer, it's very hard to wrap your mind around the fact that you have the same amount of information, if not more, on your computer. So you lose that visual representation to the amount. So you think about fire extinguishers and you think about alarm systems and locks and all of that stuff. We still need them, but we need them in a virtual manner. So I really kind of want to talk about some of the things that we've talked about in the past, but really being proactive this year, things that you can do, small steps. And these are really small steps that we can take. And, when you think about the new year, everybody comes up with resolutions and they're like, I want to lose 50 pounds and they don't have a plan, right? So really, but if they had a plan and they set reasonable expectations and took reasonable steps, losing 50 pounds wouldn't be a problem. But what happens is they run to the gym, they work out, they get sore, they eat, healthy for a few days, they're miserable because it's such a shock to our system and a drastic change to how we had been living. We lose our motivation. And the same thing goes with anything that we deal with, and especially when we deal with our critical information. But we really have to do this because there's new cybersecurity regulations that are coming out. There's new state regulations, federal requirements. And eventually, if we don't do this, we could become a victim of a cyber breach, but also be held responsible and accountable by our individual states or our individual organizations. So as I said, being proactive, I wanted to talk about a couple things that we can do. So the first thing, and we've talked about it a number of times, is just updating our software on our operating systems. So whether you're using Microsoft or Windows, we want to make sure that we're updating it. I would recommend that you go into the settings and you set it to do automatic updates, which means that whenever there's a new update, Microsoft will download the update and it will install it in the background after hours, whatever. If you leave your computer on all the time, it will do it without you having to do it. All right. And if you think about, banking, all right, I have automatic payments set up for my credit cards. It just does it. I'm never late. I never pay a fee. It always pays the minimum balance due. If I feel like going in there and paying more, I can, but I'm never late. So the same thing, we should treat that with our automatic updates. So if you have a Mac or a Windows machine, I would recommend you go in and you set it to do automatic updates and just forget about it from that point forward. Because of the largest threat to small and medium businesses is unpatched software. So that's the first thing we can do. And it costs us nothing to do it, no money. And it takes about 5 minutes to do it. If you don't know how to do it, you can send me an email. I can actually give you the instructions on how to do it. They're also on the internet. There's on YouTube. It's very simple to do that. Another thing that we want to do is we talked about encryption. Another feature that comes both with Microsoft and with Mac. And the reason we want to encrypt, especially if you have a mobile device like a laptop, is because it's very easy to break into a laptop if you have physical control over it. The password that you use most likely is not sufficient and will easily be broken or bypassed by a criminal who has physical access to your device. And then even then, if they want, they can just remove the hard drive from your laptop and plug it into a device that will read the hard drive. That's if it's not encrypted. Now, if it's encrypted, everything on that hard drive is now, when we use the term encrypted, it's being written in different ones and zeros, all right? It's an unreadable format. So even if someone took the hard drive out, then they plugged it into a device, because it's encrypted and you have the password to unlock that encryption, all that data on there is irretrievable. So that all that private information, all that client information, all that company information is irretrievable. Those are two things that we could take, so we could do today that would, if we were basing our risk off of a high of 100, would drop you down significantly, down probably 15 to 25 points on a risk scale based off of your organization. Now, we're never going to get to zero, because there's always risks and there's always changes. But what our goal is to reduce about 50% of the risk that we would have if we weren't doing anything. So remember, two things that we can do here. One is we can do the automatic updates. You can set it and forget it. You do encryption, you set it one time, and it's done. And it will encrypt in the background until the hard drive is completely encrypted, and then it remains encrypted. And therefore, you have to use, when you log in, you'll use your passcode, and that's it. And then you have access to it. When you shut your machine down, that hard drive is, all the data on that hard drive is now irretrievable. So those are two steps that we can take. Another area that we talked about, things that you can do to reduce your overall risk, is we've talked about open Wi-Fi. I don't have a problem with using free services, okay? But you have to remember that those free services do come with a certain level of risk. And a risk to open Wi-Fi is that whatever you transmit over that open Wi-Fi is retrievable with certain tools and by certain individuals. So it's very easy for a criminal to sit in a Starbucks or sit in a hotel lobby or sit in an airport lobby and actually have their computer capturing all of the information that is transmitting unseen to you, because it's transmitting in Wi-Fi, all right, to the Wi-Fi routers. But if you have a virtual private network, and I think we've all talked about that, but that's basically a tool or an application that will allow you to encrypt your data from basically your keyboard to the end we're in back. So everything you send, usernames, passwords, sites, PIN codes, email information, all of that is basically in a private pipe. So look at it that way. We use the VPN, virtual private network. It's really more of a private tunnel. So there's two ends of that tunnel. You're at one end, and the person or the organization or the site that you're trying to contact is at the other end, and no one can see that data because they're not at either end of it. Those are three things that I think are really important that we could do today. As I said, encryption is free. It's because it's on your, it's already on your operating systems. Now, does not work with Microsoft Home. This is more for Microsoft Pro, Microsoft Enterprise. Mac is universal. They have encryption built into the operating system. So that's the first thing. Both operating systems allow you to set up automatic updates, where once you set it, you don't have to worry about it, and will always make sure that you have the most up-to-date patches when they're released. You shouldn't have to think about Microsoft Patch Tuesday or some new alert from Mac that they identified, because you know what, we're all running our companies. We don't have time to necessarily look at all these alerts and make sure that we're up on it. So let the companies do it for us. They're willing to do it, let them do it. And the last one is a virtual private network. There are free ones. There are paid for, and they're always, they come from Norton, NordGuard. There's so many out there. You just have to find the one that works best for you and your organization. But they, like I said, you can go with free, but they're very low cost, maybe $25 a year to have access to it. And most of them are always having sales. So you can actually get it for maybe $10 a year if you buy like a 2-year plan or something. And that will allow you to protect all of the data and transmission now you can use this anywhere, whether you're on your own Wi-Fi, because if you live in a congested area where there's multiple Wi-Fi signals, there's always that threat. Or if you're traveling at all and you use any type of open Wi-Fi, anywhere that's open Wi-Fi where it's free, whether it be a city, an airport lounge, a coffee shop, a restaurant, really doesn't matter. They all have the same level of risk, which you can drop that risk basically from, like we said, 100, that can actually drop to a 0 because you are removing this most significant risk of using open Wi-Fi. So those are 3 things that I want to talk about. We'll talk more as we move on, but if you can do those 3 things, I'd love for you guys to leave some comments and let us know that you are doing it, or if you have any questions as to how to do it, I'd be happy to go into the comments, provide you with links. We've done workshops within the SBDC. We've done presentations. I can point you to the presentation, so you can also go to the Virginia SBDC site. We have that information, and we'll probably be scheduling more workshops in January and February to actually walk everyone through how to do that. So that's it for this week. Hopefully you got something from this. If you did, I'd love it if you guys would share the Facebook or leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing. And if there's any topics that you'd like us to add to the list over the next few weeks, we'd love to hear that too. So everybody have a great Tuesday, and we'll see you next week.